G'day, I'm DK.
And I'm Ardeet.
Thanks for joining us for this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, a segment from the Australia Talks podcast.
Yeah, this is one of our favourite parts of bringing the podcast to you, our listeners.
So please enjoy this segment from the regular podcast.
I've been everywhere, man. I've been everywhere, man. Across the desert, fair man. I've breathed the mountain air, man. I've traveled, I've had my...
All right, this week's Two Ticks Town Talk, we're going to southeastern Victoria, specifically to the Gippsland, to Korumburra. Korumburra it's only 120 k's southeast of Melbourne, in the South Gippsland. So if you're from Melbourne, if you're a Melburnian, nice and close. You could go there for the weekend, I guess. But small town with a 2021 census population of only 3,639. It is a nice, quiet little town surrounded by picturesque rolling green hills. It's quite pretty sort of area of the country. First established in 1889, the town's prosperity basically grew from, which ones are going to be, gold, coal, or something else. In this case, it was coal mining. And that lasted until 1962. Today, though, the town's sort of main industry is cattle, particularly dairy farming. It is a quiet little part of the world until the first half of last year, in 2025, when the neighbouring town was home to Aaron Patterson, a.k.a. the Mushroom Murderer. And that kind of blew up this area and put it onto not just a national spotlight, but an international spotlight as well. But that isn't what the Two Ticks Town Talk is about. But I do feel like I needed to mention the elephant in the room. So, every year in the little town of Korumburra, in early September, a giant worm comes out and parades through the main street, or at least it did. It looks like some of the worm puppets may have been retired over the last few years, but the big one was called Karmai, the big worm, and the giant puppet essentially was paraded through the streets, a bit like one of those Chinese like dragon, a bit like that, but it was a worm, and that was paraded through the streets to celebrate the local community and the local Gippsland giant worms that are found in the surrounding area. That's right. This is another Two Ticks Town Talk where we look at what's in the ground around the town. And this time, though, for once, it's actually alive, and that is the giant Gippsland earthworm, the largest earthworm on planet Earth, which is pretty cool. They're basically exactly what you're probably thinking when I say giant worm,
Large and worm-like.
Yeah, a big noodle essentially. They're huge, obviously. They typically reach lengths of 1 meter or 3 feet long. That's pretty average, and about 2 centimeters in diameter. So they are quite noodly still. But they have found specimens that are over 3 meters long, which is absolutely wild. They're that typical kind of earthworm, maroon, grey kind of color. You know, it's kind of fleshy, kind of colored, maybe a little bit of purple. That other species of what you would typically think of when you think of earthworm have. So they very much look like a normal worm, just bigger. But they do have a very dark grey, kind of purpley head. So one end of them will look like it's all bruised and swollen. That's the head, they tell me. Other than the color and sort of the size variation, it just looks like a tube. Much like the more common earthworms, those sorts you probably got in your garden, their bodies can stretch and contract. And there are some pictures online where the they've sort of fully contracted, and of course, when they do that, they swell a little bit. This fills me greatly with pleasure because they become this chonky little I don't know, stick-looking thing. But of course, they can stretch out a really long way. So I want to play with one, basically. They live in the subsoil of blue, grey or red clay soils along stream banks and some south or west-facing hills of their remaining habitat, which is in the Gippsland. Not specifically just around here. They're sort of spread out over about 100-kilometre, but they're 100-kilometre patch, but they are highly isolated into small groups. They live in deep burrow systems, and they do require water in their environment to breathe, essentially. So, like a lot of worms, they don't like it too dry. It's just got to be just right. They have a relatively long life expectancy for invertebrates and can take up to 5 years just to reach maturity, which is pretty impressive.
I wouldn't have even come close on that guess.
Yeah, they can live for decades.
Wow. Huh.
They lay quite large eggs, surprisingly. I can't ever think that I've ever specifically noticed like worm eggs or anything like that. But these naturally lay quite large eggs. They're about 4 to 7 centimeters long, so that's a couple of inches. So they're pretty bloody big. They lay these in their burrows underground where they incubate for up to 12 months before they hatch. The baby worms, when they do hatch, are about 20 centimeters long, but they can take another several years to reach adulthood and breeding age. So it's a very slow, I'm assuming tough life being a worm.
Nobody loves you, everybody hates you.
Unlike other more common earthworms, they actually spend most of their time at least half a meter under the ground, and they don't deposit their castings onto the surface like most other worms. Now, I already know what your next question is. What the hell is a casting? Castings are the sediment that is removed basically by burrowing. So as you dig a hole, you got to put the dirt somewhere. That is the castings. Normally, most worms and other burrowing creatures kind of throw them out the entrance of the hole. But these guys don't really come to the surface pretty much very often at all. And as a result, you won't really find an entrance to their burrows on the surface under typical circumstances. It's not impossible. They do come up in some circumstances. But really the only common way to actually get one to come to the surface is very, very heavy rain, where the water has completely waterlogged the sort of top meter of soil, which, as you can imagine, is a hell of a lot of rain and basically flooding conditions before they'll actually come up out of their burrows to the surface. They sometimes are known to do this if food or organic matter has become scarce in their area as well. They may come to the surface to basically have a feed. What do they eat? Little kids. No. They well, I mean, if you bury, they might. They eat organic matter, just like other worms, as well as bacteria and fungi, which, because they're sort of a bit varied compared to some other worm species that may only eat specific types of organic matter, they do think this has allowed them to better adapt to the change from, this area changed, of course, from forests to pastures, but they don't seem to be too impacted by that change, which is pretty cool. They're usually quite sluggish, as worms typically are, but they have been studied to move quite rapidly through their burrows, which causes an audible gurgling or sucking sound, which can be detected sometimes at the surface. So if you're sitting in a paddock in the southern Gippsland and suddenly you hear some gurgling underneath you, look, it might just be that you're hungry or you might need a fart, but it also could be a giant earthworm moving underneath you. Unfortunately, the Gippsland earthworm colonies are small and as a result quite isolated from other worm colonies, or maybe they're not. Maybe that's on purpose. Maybe there's a epic underground war going on. We don't know. But the species do have a low reproductive rate and a slow maturing timeline, which makes those small populations quite vulnerable. But it also should be said that there's no reliable data on which to base population estimates or trends, because obviously it is quite difficult to study subterranean species, particularly when they don't often come to the surface. So how many there are, we don't know. There could be one underneath you right now. The biggest threat to them, of course, is habitat destruction. Their natural habitats are grasslands and lightly forested areas, and while they can survive beneath pastures, cultivation and heavy cattle grazing and effluent runoff are adversarial to the species, basically. They, as all things, we don't want to overdo it. But I'd like to say, for once, small-scale responsible cattle farming might actually help save this species, because heavy tree planting will actually threaten them as well. They're worms, but they're very temperamental. They're a little bit of divas. A dense tree cover will actually reduce the soil humidity and dry out the ground, which they don't like, and as a result, won't live there. So, weirdly enough, actually removing quite a lot of vegetation may have actually helped them to continue to survive to this point, which is often not what we hear.
That's a twist.
Yeah. So a bit of a twist. So, which is kind of cool. But that's basically all I have for you on the Gippsland giant worm. There was a worm museum. It was shut down in 2012. Well, it was a wildlife museum that did have a whole section on the worms. It got shut down in 2012, unfortunately, and actually has made the news a couple of times because it was effectively abandoned, and there was a large shark that was in, I think it was like in chloroform or something like that. And it was just left in there. So a few urban explorers walked in there and got a bit of a fright seeing basically an abandoned giant, I think it was a great white or something like that, just sitting in a room by itself. So, unfortunately, there's not really much that I can say. Get out there, go see the Gippsland to see the worms. Go see the Gippsland because it's a beautiful country. It's a beautiful part of Australia. And, if you're from Europe or something like that, I think you'd find it very, very lovely and remind you of home. Just don't expect to see any of these giant worms. So, because, they don't want to see you. They want to stay underground. Don't be disappointed, though. Know that they're there. They're there where they want to be. They're under your feet, eating dirt, as they love to do. So hopefully one day you won't see a giant Gippsland worm, but you might get out to our Two Ticks Town Talk town this week of Korumburra, and you can go to the Worm Festival when it's held in early September instead.
Ah, very good. I actually went to the museum you're talking about many years ago with Mrs. Ardeet. In fact, I'm trying to think it was even pre-2000. It probably was, actually. Something like that. Like I vaguely had in my head about it shutting down, but it was. They had. I
should say it's called Wildlife Wonder Park for anyone that wants to look it up.
Yeah. Well, hang on. Am I getting mixed up with a place called the Giant Earthworm? This was certainly its focus was on the. Its focus was on the giant earthworm, and they had displays and dioramas and things, and recordings of how it actually sounded going through the earth, and some of them that were preserved. I can't remember if I don't think they had any live ones there. It was just sort of representations of them, and I was just sort of, because they can also be fairly fragile from memory. To catch and handle, so it wasn't as if they had a worm petting zoo.
Yeah. Worms are notoriously fragile, right? Yeah.
Especially when they get that big. But yeah, it was one of those drive around things. And what's this? This one we were reasonably new to Victoria, and it was one of the adventures driving around. So it was, as you said, it is a nice part of the world. So I'm thinking that must be the same spot.
Yeah, and what I'll do as well as for anyone that is interested, I'll put a news article about this abandoned park. I don't want to call it a theme park because that's not quite right, but if they want to see what we're talking about. But yeah, look, I'm a bit disappointed that there's not something I can point to and go here and learn more. But look, maybe there's a visitors center along the highway or something like that. I'm sure there's a little bit of something. But in my cursory look, I couldn't specifically find something going, go there, come and have a look. So there is a coal museum in the town. But other than that, look, I think if you ask some locals, they might be able to point you in the right direction as well. They might go, oh yeah, old Kev up the road found one yesterday, and you can go have a look at it or something like that.
Yeah, nice country to drive around in anyway.
It's very, very pretty. Yeah,
drive and walk. So yeah.